Hey guys, this is Chad at All Dogs Off-Road. Today we're going to be working on Reba. We posted a short video a little while back indicating that there was a timing chain issue with the VK56, and as you can see, it's an issue. So we didn't catch this on video, but we started the teardown. We got the radiator and the condenser and a lot of the accessories out of the way. And in order to fully expose the timing chains, we have to drop the front differential and also drop the oil pan. A lot of that wasn't caught on video because we're in our busy season right now, and we're kind of working on this back and forth between shipping and talking to customers. So sorry you guys have missed some of the teardown, but it's probably for the better anyways because we're not mechanics, and it probably wasn't going to end up being like a good how-to style video. But mostly torn down on the front. We have to still clear some parts, like I said, the differential and the oil pan, in order to fully expose the timing chains and gears and whatnot and see what we've got for damage. Hopefully the timing chain just snapped and the inside of the timing cover or the block haven't been chewed up. We'll find that out at a later date. But part of the reason we're making this video now is in order to drop the diff and the oil pan, it's going to be a lot easier for us to delete the HBMC suspension. Some of these Infiniti QX56s and QX80s come with a hydraulically connected suspension system. Basically, all of your shocks are tied in with huge hydraulic lines, and there's like a valve or canister that rides on the frame, and everything is tied in together. It's very similar to a Toyota 4Runner's X-Ray-S system. In order to proceed with diagnosing the engine, I want to remove all of that because it'll make pulling the CVs much easier, and it's just going to clean up the suspension because we're not going to run that stuff. We're obviously going to lift this. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to bleed off the pressure in the HBMC. I think it runs about 300 psi if I remember correctly, and there's like a distributor block on the driver's side frame a little bit closer to the rear tire. So once we bleed that off, there will be a number of connection points on the shocks. So you'll come and take a look in here. You'll see here's your front coilover for your X-Ray-S system. It's a big beefy shock, and if you look in here, there's really not much way to clearance or make room to pull the CVs when this is in the way. And it's got this huge stem up top, which is where your hydraulic lines are connected. So the plan is bleed off the system, take the pressure off of it, and then you disconnect up here and here, and then you should be able to remove your tie rod as well, and then everything should be able to drop out. The rear will be fairly similar. And like I said, we're gonna just delete all this. So once we bleed off the pressure and disconnect and remove the coilover, we'll probably just run through and delete all the hoses that run along the frame front to back. This is gonna be a messy project. There's probably gonna be quite a bit of shock oil all over the place, and I'm super stoked about it. So your valve body for your HBMC system is at the driver's side, kind of near toward the rear of the frame, and there are two 13mm bolts that hold the cover in place. So you drop your 13mm bolts here, and then this is kind of, I'm calling it like a distribution block. There are some bolts here that you'll loosen, and then there's a cap right here. So we're going to try and probably get a bucket under here, loosen these valves, and hopefully pressure will discharge on the system, and then we'll start making a mess removing the coilovers and rear shocks. So full disclaimer, we've never done this, never deleted an HBMC system, so this is new to me, new to us, and this may or may not be the best way to do it, but you guys can follow along and learn with us. So if we were smarter, we'd probably connect a hose or something down from the valve down into our bucket here, but I don't think we have one large enough in the shop right now to do that. I know that on some forum write-ups, some guys have taken like the low pressure quick connect from an AC unit that will actually snap right on, but well, maybe not. this one doesn't fit. So scratch that. But there's a write-up where a guy basically recharged his setup and he found fittings that would connect on, and then he was able to regulate his pressure as he bled off or recharged the system. But we're not going to do that. We're not interested in preserving the setup. We just want to take the pressure off so that we can get rid of it. So let's see what happens. The regulator setup here, it's got 3 what look like 13mm bolts. There's one in the center, and then there are 2 to the sides. I imagine the one in the center is for basically your middle pressure bleed off, and then the side ones are just for like tuning front to back, is my understanding. So maybe we'll start with the center, see what happens. Okay, so we got a little bit of pressure there. A little bit of drip, and I've got that fully loose. I'll do the rearward one now and see what happens. If I can get on it. Yep, there we go. Like I said, we were going to make a little bit of a mess here, so. Okay, so that's our center, and then our right-hand bolt. We'll do the left bolt, which I believe controls the front here, and once this tapers off a little bit. So that's our front one loosened. And that wasn't really as dramatic as I was expecting. So the valves are open, we'll let this drain for a little bit, and then we'll start pulling apart the front suspension. So now that we have the main pressure bled off of the HBMC system, there are going to be 2 ports on the front coilovers, and you'll notice that they have little bleed screws on them, just like your brake caliper bleeders. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to probably take a little bit of hose and put it on so we can control flow if we get any oil discharge. But we will break those bleeders loose and bleed off whatever other pressure or oil is left in the system. And then from there are 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that clamp the, I guess you could call them reservoir hoses, that run back to the main valve body. We will disconnect those, and then this coilover should come out just like a regular coilover does. Yeah, so there appears to be no fluid on either, so the pressure is off. Probably it's draining back a little bit, but so you'll see we've got our hydraulic lines disconnected, so now we should be able to fish the coilover out. And I didn't make hardly as much of a mess as expected, so I'm sorry for the disappointment. and oh, a little bit of oil. But that's your first HBMC shock all removed. I think our plan is we're probably going to throw some Fox coilovers on and some Fox rear shocks along with our lift coils in the rear. We want to keep this vehicle as a roller in case we need to remove the lift, so after this is all deleted we'll probably throw those back on. I'm not sure if that'll be part of this video or not though. We'll definitely make it into a video though. So we're going to do the exact same thing on the driver's side, just a rinse and repeat. We'll disconnect, or I'm sorry, we'll bleed off any possible pressure using the bleeders. I don't expect there are any, just like on the other side. And then we'll disconnect the hydraulic lines, disconnect the tire rod, push it out of the way, drop the coil over. So good. The front came out nice and easy, and our hydraulic lines are still here, and we'll be removing those after we get the rears. So we'll go take the wheels off of the rear now and start working on the rear shocks. Shocks are a little bit more different than the fronts. The rears are kind of a combination shock absorber and airbag setup, so there will be a little bit more disconnect going on. You've got your same two ports like you do on your front coilovers, and then here you have an air line. Now we're not going to be reusing the air compressor. We'll probably just cut, and then we'll just do our, you got your two bleed ports here, so we'll do our bleeds and then removal. One thing that may be tricky for us here is the way that the upper mount for this hydraulic line attaches. There's a bracket here. It looks like you have to undo the shock bolt before you can get that bracket out to drop the shock. We may just end up cutting with a grinder. We'll see how much trouble it gives us. Hopefully, ideally, it will just unbolt, but it's a 2012 and it's lived in Nebraska, so it might be rusted and seized. We'll see. So we're basically going to do about the same process as we did on the front. Disconnect our bleed ports, make sure there's no pressure in the system. Disconnect the hydraulic lines, cut the air line, remove the shock. I've got a jack supporting under the spindle here because your shock is kind of what is your limit strap for the most part. It's the limiter of your suspension. So the concern would be if you're not supported here, that once you disconnect the shock, the spring is going to want to unload and drop everything. Make sure you have your spindle supported if you're going to be doing similar. So we got a little bit of corrosion on our upper shock nut. We're gonna try and use a fancy little induction heater to heat that nut up and see if we can get it to bust loose. It worked. Hot. Cool, so we didn't destroy it. On the airline, it looks like a push fitting. So if you push the little red plastic piece inward, it releases the line so that you can remove the shock without destroying it. Theoretically, everything should come right out. So the point of this video is really just the HBMC delete. We'll be doing a full suspension video probably in the near future. I am going to throw the rear shocks that we're going to use on now just so that we limit the suspension so that we don't drop the coil and so on. So I've got some Fox 2.0s that I'm going to slap in real quick before I unload the spindle just to kind of keep everything in place. got our replacement shock in. We're gonna go do the passenger side, and then from there the HBMC will all be deleted, and all will be left are the hydraulic lines, and we'll go through and remove all those and clean everything up. This will be just like a 2017 Nissan Armada. One thing also that we will be doing at some point, but not in this video, is adding sway bars. So your HBMC hydraulic system acts as your sway bar, and so the front and rear of this vehicle are not equipped with sway bars. So we'll go pull some from the local junkyard, and then probably when we do our suspension install video, we'll slap those bad boys in. Alright guys, all the shocks are out. All that's left are the hydraulic lines and the valve and whatnot. So we're gonna put the Infiniti up in the air and start cleaning up. We are making the mess that we promised. Wrapped up with the HBMC delete. As you can see, it has been happy birthday to the grounded. There's a ton of shock oil on the ground that we'll have to clean up, but we're done. Next steps for this will be me being able to proceed with the timing chain issue, and then once we get the vehicle up and running, then I think we'll do a suspension install video. You guys saw me throw some rear shocks on. We'll probably take those off and do like a full step-by-step just for demonstration purposes. This really wasn't that bad to do, and the components here all do look very similar to a 4Runner X-Ray system. It's manufactured by Tokiko. I think it might be just the same system retrofitted to the Nissan Armada, the Infiniti QX56 and 80, and then the Y62 patrols overseas. Delete is pretty straightforward. There are no electronics here, so that will not create any check engine light issues or suspension light issues. The airbags and sensors on the control arms may, and we'll figure out a solution for that when it becomes an issue for us. This Infiniti Reba is on our way to being lifted, so hopefully here soon we'll be doing more videos for you. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave us some comments, like, subscribe, and follow along as Reba gets built.